Hey, it's Mark Perera here, and welcome to the new podcast. I am very glad to introduce Matt Ziskie from Bungalow VC and former CPO of Airbnb and Box, also with a career in working more traditional procurement roles before that. But welcome to the pod, Matt. Really excited to have you dialing in from LA.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
It looks like it's just as cold over there as it is in not so sunny London. But the reason to get you on today, Matt, is talking about this whole AI space. You have a unique vantage point, particularly in the world of procurement and how AI is coming through from both working in the procurement world, but also backing companies on the kind of future of work for the last 5 years through the venture capital company as well. So I just thought it would be great to get your view of what's happening in, I guess, the West Coast over there in the tech space. But how do you see AI coming through in terms of venture capital, but also the wider tech space?
Yeah, gosh, it's all happening so fast, isn't it? I feel like we've fallen into this kind of acceptance that things start out looking like a toy, and then kind of over time they mature, and you see kind of these more advanced use cases. And I feel like the phase of AI looking like a toy to where we are now, was like, months long, not years or a decade like we've had the luxury of in some other tech cycles. So it's energizing, it's dizzying, it's scary at times. It's exciting, the pace that we're seeing AI just kind of blaze through industries and small teams, large teams, enterprise, small business. It's very, very clear that we're on the cusp of a major shift.
What, as you see I guess the last phase was SaaS. Why is AI different in your view? What's making the difference?
So there's a couple things. If you look at what company, let's start with the company standpoint, and what teams are able to do with AI and in building their business. And I think we saw like a massive, massive shift when companies had to stop running their own server rooms and they could move their applications to the cloud, right? We saw teams get faster. You could launch startups for cheaper. You could get to market quicker, and you can make changes faster. And kind of everyone rode that productivity wave as far as building startups go. And AI has taken that and kind of accelerated that even further. So small teams now can have working prototypes in hours, if not days. They can have prototypes in customers' hands and get real-time feedback. They can have data analyzed, customer data analyzed in instances rather than sending it to an analyst overnight or having to hire that analyst in the first place, or staff up a team, which takes time and money. So the pace at which companies can get a product to market and innovate on that product is spectacular, frankly. And then I think from a company standpoint, the speed at which startups are able to deliver that solution, companies are feeling from a procurement standpoint as well, right? I mentioned the shift in mobile. I mentioned the shift. You brought up the shift in SaaS. We had time to look at these shifts from a procurement standpoint, and you know, anyone who's ever been to a procurement conference in the last 20 years has heard like, well, I know cloud is coming, but my company is different. Or I know mobile applications and kind of SaaS point best of breed point applications are coming, but my business is different and we do things a certain way. We do not, I say we because I still kind of lump myself into the procurement profession every now and then. Sorry. Procurement does not have the luxury of waiting on AI and doesn't have the luxury of saying we're different. It's not going to touch us, or our business runs differently. Our stack is different. This isn't going to impact us like it impacts our peer company. You have to move now. You have to embrace it now. And it's coming quicker than we realize.
It seems to the speed definitely seems to come. I've gone through that. I'm an old man. I turned 50 this year, but I came from old days of client server into ASP into to SaaS and now into AI. So I've seen the full cycle of these things, and it does seem like it's going to be moving a lot more quickly. I think it's also the interesting part that I'm seeing, and obviously I've got a tech company of my own, is the size of the teams you mentioned.
Yeah.
You can have pretty small teams building pretty very substantial or businesses. I think the likes of Cursor and so forth. You're talking about 10, 20 people getting to ridiculously high ARR very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I think that actually has to factor into procurement decision making as well, right? Like the diligence that what we do on suppliers is going to change pretty dramatically, because you're probably not going to be able to go do site visits and see a 2,000 person company and see how happy employees are when you walk up and down the kind of cubicle rows. Do companies still have cubicles? The open floor plan. And now, there's a team of 6 or 7 people. They might be distributed, and they're providing key workflows for your company, and they're printing cash. They're profitable, right? They've raised kind of very little money, but they're growing, and they're solving a critical need for you. So just the change of how we evaluate suppliers, I think, looks a lot different.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Actually, earlier today, I spoke to a former CPO. He's just moved out of an FMCG company, and he's quite into the tech space. So he's been talking with some earlier stage companies and just exploring what they're doing with AI. His one of the interesting things he said is like the SaaS companies you'd kind of rip up their current products and rebuild, which is really, really hard to do because the stuff that the smaller teams are doing and how it's more output focused is that's what I was mentioning is this is not about seats anymore, seat
No.
licenses and following a workflow. It's actually all driving about the outcome that we're trying to do with that process.
Yeah. And I think this is going to push procurement to look at how we evaluate success. What are the metrics, right? Because I would argue savings not going to be the critical metric moving forward in the world of AI. It is going to be what you said. It's going to be ROI, and it's going to be some sort of metric oriented around throughput. How much more can teams do? How much more can companies tackle? How much more can you ship to your clients rather than, can you save 10% on a widget? Which I think which will sort itself through the tooling that procurement is adding to its stack, right? With automated negotiation and bids and things like that. But I think we'll seem quaint in terms of the value that can be captured in, really fulfilling procurement's promise, which is, helping the business accelerate, helping the business deliver value to its customers, helping the business become more efficient and run on really efficient guide rails.
Well, let's step back a bit because I think you're the only person I know who's gone through being a CPO and then made a rather drastic, not drastic, but uncommon decision to become backing founders and helping to build tech companies through the VC frame. Well, what made you make that jump from CPO to VC founder partner?
Yeah, I mean, still sorting through that. No, so I was really, really fortunate to be an early procurement hire at some of the fast growing technology companies in the Valley, right when the enterprise was starting to adopt kind of SaaS and SaaS 2.0. So I had this incredible vantage point on software coming into the organization. First of all, employees were bringing software into the organization, which like you're an old guy, I'm an old guy, like that blew my mind to wake up one day and have employees coming and saying, this is the software my team wants to use at work, right? And like I didn't really have a say. My job was now to help them buy that software. So that blew my mind. And that was like a big wake-up call to me that how organizations bought software was going to shift. As I watched it develop, it also became clear to me what software was being adopted and why. You could start to see some links in the enterprise about what softwares do really well and which grow and which kind of leap from team to team. Without talking too much about individual softwares, I'll never forget the communication software that we all know and love that came to the enterprise one day, and we thought about Should we let this happen? Should we not? And we like took a week to debate it. And the next week there was 2,000 channels in the company, and like that was all said and done. That tool was going to now be around in the organization, right? So you get to see how certain software comes into an org and just kind of takes over. And I became obsessed um, with kind of that motion and what software works and what doesn't. And I started providing notes around town to VCs, just saying like, hey, as a procurement professional, here's how I would look at buying the software or not. And that led to working with startups, and I, started angel investing, and that worked out, decently well. And that led to me being able to kind of raise outside money with my partner, Dave, at Bungalow. So we launched that in 2020, and we're investing out of our third fund currently.
Oh, so just as the COVID pandemic kicked in, you kicked off the new venture as well. So I guess that
The
kind of
the week
forced.
it the week it shut the market down was our first fundraising week for Bungalow Capital, and so I watched my inbox blow up with about 200 cancellations for my full couple weeks of fundraising. But we were super fortunate. I know a lot of businesses struggled during that time, so no one weeps for a VC fund. We were super fortunate to be able to kind of right the ship and stand that fund up, and we're really lucky to be able to partner with some good entrepreneurs in that fund.
Yeah, I know that you won't brag about your success, but I think you were early money, if not first, one of the first checks into Zip, which is obviously one of the big plays in the procurement space now. So
Yeah,
that's a great insight that made you write that check. It's great to see how they developed and the ecosystem and the competitors around them as well.
yeah. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and I was lucky. Those guys took a check from me.
So you obviously spend a lot of time. I think the future of work is something you've been looking at and learning. But what about the speed? So we see the speed of the technology coming through, but then the adoption. So I think a lot of CEOs know that AI are going to be an important part of their organization. I know it then takes a while for the business to actually adopt. But the smaller organizations are going to adopt this a lot more quickly than the larger ones. Are you seeing particular industries, larger companies adopt more quickly, or do you just think it's going to take another 6, 12 months before we see the eyes opening of the procurement leaders, but also the other
Yeah.
functional leaders to accept how quickly this is going to change their functions?
Yeah, I think you touched on something really interesting, which is that small orgs are adopting AI much, much faster and getting the benefit much, much quicker. And large orgs have been stuck, I think rightfully so, right? Like SaaS came, SaaS proliferated the org. There's, as the footprint increased, security concerns increased, of security departments and IT departments. And, SaaS sprawl got so large, in the kind of recent future, that large organizations became really, really good at putting controls around buying software. So all the bring your own software to work stuff I just mentioned, like that got clamped down. Putting software on credit card expense reports got really clamped down. And I think there's a culture now, and I think Mark, in conversations with you in the past, I think someone in your team mentioned the ministry of no, but procurement has become this kind of ministry of no, and they've gotten extremely good at it. And I think it was for the right reasons. It was to protect the organization, protect the shareholders of that organization, but I'm really, really worried that now large organizations are missing the value they can be delivering to those shareholders. And they're so stuck in no, and they're so kind of paralyzed by security concerns around adopting software, that we're moving too slow on some of these opportunities. And sure, like security matters, security around AI certainly matters, and we need to be careful. But I don't think we can take the software approval processes that have worked for us in the past and just kind of port them over to the new world we're living in. I think we have to start from scratch. You mentioned, you know, SaaS businesses having to write their code base over from scratch. I think procurement organizations need to start from scratch and think about how they buy AI software. And it needs to look a lot different than the software councils that were assembled to buy, the 10th or 12th best of breed point marketing solution. That folks would argue, do we have a tool that already does this? Like, we've passed that world, and I think we need to kind of catch up to the new one we're living in.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating time. I was listening to a podcast with one of your former bosses, Aaron Levy from Box, yesterday actually, because there's also this build versus buy approach that we're going to see in the AI space. I'm sure the teams at Microsoft and maybe some of the big consultancies will be saying you can build this internally and go for it as we did with, I guess, the Power BI and in my younger days, Microsoft Access and those types of tools that allowed you to build all the features in there. But he was talking about core and context. I think it goes back to Jeffrey Moore and some of his thoughts around that. Of actually the organization should be looking at how they're building AI for their competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So to the customers and to the consumers they're delivering, whilst they should just buy the solutions that are going to run the business from their procurement to HR. There's no point in them trying to build that stuff themselves. I'm not sure if you've got a view on that or
Yeah, I do. I look, and I this is like a core. I haven't heard the pod that Aaron did. I should listen to it. Aaron's the best, and so smart in terms of where technology is going. We have this core view at Bungalow that companies are always better off when they're serving their clients. Companies are always better off when they're focused on delivering their solution effectively to clients. And if you look at what happens in a day around delivering those solutions, you'll find a lot of stuff that's probably not in that company's best interest to be doing when you compare it to focusing on the customer. And I think build versus buy oftentimes follows that kind of same path. I think there's times when it makes sense to build your own solutions when you're, a large internet marketplace dealing in 80 currencies. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe there's not a payment solution that you can buy off the shelf that works for your company. Maybe you have to build your own, right? Like you're handling this much currency on a daily basis and it just doesn't make sense. When you're talking about, basic functions of your business and moving it forward, there's probably rarely a time where there's not a solution that you can purchase that doesn't allow you to go back to focusing on your customer and go back to focusing on your solution delivery, which, if done right, should, kind of lead to more sales and lead to more customers. And that's where time is best spent. I mean, obviously, it's up to companies to make their own decision around this, but
so.
we often find that's where time is best spent.
No, I think it's there. I'm sure there'll be some IT directors and kingdoms in the IT that space that will want to build on there. But it's going to be interesting to see the transition and see if we go through the same cycles as we've seen in others. Um, Also, just it's fascinating to see the foundation LLMs moving and where they fit in there. I think. I guess what's your view on the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic and the one that others out there? They seem to be I've seen lots of analogies of whether they're the fire or the kind of the battery for this new economy. How do you think they fit into the actual solutions that I guess the people within the organization will use?
Yeah, I mean, look, but from professionally, we've focused on investing at the application layer. So, like, I haven't spent too much time like competitively looking at the large LLMs and differentiation. I will say at the application layer, what we're finding that works best is when companies build to kind of all solutions, right? What is seems to be emerging is some LLMs have specialties or focuses that are a little bit more tweaked or advanced than others. And based on the solution you're using or the workflow you're kind of running, that maybe that's suited for one LLM versus others, and the ability to toggle between those kind of matters. And so the startups we're working with in the AI space that are utilizing these large LLMs, they access all of them. And so I look, if I were to kind of bet on this future, that's kind of the future I would bet on, is that, enterprises will build to certain solutions where it makes sense, or to all of them.
It's no, it's fascinating. I think it's the only way you can do it because every week, every month, there's a new model coming out, which is faster, cheaper, and so forth. But I think there is the cost is just going down as well. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating what this does in terms of the world. Um, any so for the procurement people out there, when they're looking at AI, what are some of the questions you would look at when you're looking and trying to make a decision on a third party solution on this?
Yeah, you know, I am really biased here, to index to founders when we're going through large technology shifts. And, when you're underwriting something in an area you haven't purchased before, I would get really comfortable with the founder or founding team, and like, where do they think the space is going? I promise you, they've spent more time thinking about it than you have. And I promise you that it's going to be like, you're going to learn a ton from, whether you agree or disagree. You're going to learn a ton from hearing where they think the space goes, particularly around your workflow or problem or solution. So I would really, really index to that team, and like letting them kind of help guide your journey and your procurement journey around the space. Look, I've been guilty of it myself, but I think after you buy something through several cycles, there's this kind of tendency to be like, I know what's going on in the space. I know the drivers. I know what this looks like in the next 5 years. And we just don't know in AI. Like, we don't know. And the people that know best are going to be the people that are building companies around these spaces and solutions around these spaces. So I would, yeah, pricing matters, solution matters, have your technical team due diligence, all of these things that we normally do. I don't think the sourcing process looks terribly different, but I do think founders really matter here. Their vision for the company, where they think the space is going, what they think adjacent technology looks like around them. Like, where do they fit into the stack? I think it's such a helpful question for procurement to ask suppliers, is like, tell me about the software that sits around you. And, I think the best software providers are able to say exactly what sits around them and what they do really well, and where they plug into their processes and where they hand off really well. Maybe what could use some work in a handoff, but like, they understand they're part of an ecosystem that's driving a company towards customer solutions. And that's kind of where they're building to. So like, I would really index to that, because this is all new. We're not going to have the standard benchmarks yet to evaluate. We have to talk to people that have been thinking about this and that have a vision for the future.
I think you're exactly right. That understanding of the context around your own solution. Obviously, the data side is going to be an important part for them to get context as well. But as we move forward, there's not going to one single AI solution that's going to rule them all within the procurement world. So I guess we will have some multi-agents handing over to each other in the future, but maybe run by different teams. So I guess we have to look at
Totally.
that further down the line. And then
Yeah, and,
if you look
and
towards
look,
the
if sorry, if I could just add one more thing. Like, I would encourage procurement leaders, managers, category managers to download all these models, to download all these LLMs, to work with them, to do little daily workflows in your personal life on them, and have like, talk to the AI. I know this sounds strange. Talk to the AI models, and like, tell them about what's on your schedule that day. Ask them questions about it. Like, start to expand your mind to the possibilities of what might be open in your company's workflows. And you're not going to be able to think on that level unless you download these tools, unless you've worked with them.
I completely agree. Over the last few weeks, it's all been about vibe coding um, with Cursor and so forth, just talking into it and allowing it to build the stuff there as well. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Without actually using this stuff, it's gonna be different. What about the CPO role? So, we're talking, we've seen RPA, we've seen
Yeah,
automations, now we're seeing agentic workflows,
yeah,
but we are going to get agents coming in which are going to make decisions. And I think there's a difference between agentic workflows and agents.
yeah,
Um, as the LLMs get smarter, the foundation LLMs, we can only see that there will be able to make some decisions. We'll have human in the loop
yeah.
still, but I presume they're going to go further up the strategic pyramid as well, where they'll be supporting some of the more strategic decisions they
That's
can.
right. And that's right. And like we've been again, like if you've gone to a procurement conference in the last 30 years, I think you've heard the phrase, we need a seat at the table, we want a seat at the table. Like this is the chance, right? This is the chance to help the business adopt technology that's going to move it forward. This is the chance to not be seen as a bureaucratic cost cutter, but to be able to bring solutions into the enterprise that are value add and that show immediate ROI. I think for far too long, procurement and like I'm not being critical like we had the luxury of letting procurement be an inbound process, right? If you are a large logo enterprise, suppliers come to you and say, here's how I can help. Here's my pricing. If there's 4 or 5 suppliers that are all offering the same thing, you can put your arms around it, you can run a bid. Like I kind of think those days are a little bit behind us, and CPOs should be proactive and they should be going out to find technology that they can bring into their workflows, that they can bring into their enterprise that are going to move it forward. And because something is working and because the status quo isn't shutting the org down, like me personally, that used to be my barometer, right? Like if a software is not closing the factory, if a software is not shutting the plant down, it's probably fine. Like, could it get better? Sure, but like, it's probably good enough. And like, there's a risk in change as well, so you just don't know what's going to happen. I actually think there's a risk moving forward of not changing, and so like, you have to go out now and be thinking about what technologies and what workflows need help in your org. And you have to have a little bit of imagination around what you can bring in and what teams you can bring in that can help move your business forward and help you reach your customers in a better way.
I think it's a really good point there, Matt, and one we're going to explore in a bit more detail. So I'm very excited that you're going to be speaking at the DPW New York event in June. I think it's 10th and 11th, if I'm right on that one.
Yes.
Matt's going to be there. It's going to be fantastic to have you on stage talking in and around this very topic, but also back to your point around getting the CPOs there to actually meet these startup founders. So we're going to be talking about the full breadth of AI, the decision makings around it, seeing some of this in action. But I think it's a great opportunity to meet a whole lot of inspiring tech founders that they can hopefully go away and maybe start testing and doing some POCs of this technology. And I think that's one thing that does comes out with the AI. The POCs are a lot easier. The speed to value
Yeah.
is a lot quicker, and the ability to test it in small parts of the business is there. So I'm looking forward to see a foray of lots and lots of POCs coming off the back of the June event. And also, Matt, we welcome you to Europe soon. So you enjoy the cold weather and the rain so much that you've decided to leave sunny LA and come to London. So I'm very excited
That's
about
right.
you joining us over here in the summer, yeah, we'll see how you get through the first winter over here in later in the year. But
That's right.
we hope to see a lot more of you, Matt, and maybe we can catch up pre the June event as well, because I'm sure some questions will come off this session, and it'll be good just to ask you a few more in the run up to the event as well.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And I mean, I'm so excited for the June event. I think it's going to be great. I've attended the Amsterdam event several times, but this will be my first trip to the New York event, and I'm super fired up about it. And yeah, thanks for having me on the pod, and I'd be thrilled to come back anytime and talk about technology and AI.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And hopefully you'll bring your paddle racket because I'm going to get you on the court in Dumbo in New York and also in London. So we'll
It's
have a
on.
bit of tech, procurement tech and paddle going on. So we'll see you in June. Thank you very much, Matt, and have a great day.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers.